Hey guys, we got about 2 minutes. The show's going to be on this lower level out here at the Next Step House. Let's get together here.
Tony, help me measure.
Just a couple minutes.
Here.
Just a couple minutes.
Go with top of it. Here.
Hey, you guys, what are you guys doing? I know what they're doing. They're measuring the pool table to see how big this room needs to be.
And for
about
good
8 feet
reason.
long.
I remember when we literally built a room in the basement for some folks, and the room was too small for the pool table. Remember what happened?
They didn't tell us they were putting
They
a
didn't.
pool table down there, so they had to shoot pool with 3-foot cues.
Yeah, I remember that.
Boy.
Is it? The floor's wet in
my
this
socks are
basement.
getting wet.
What is going?
Hey, we got
Hey,
sump
your
pump
text
failure, guys.
message. I got a text from the pit boss, the sump pump.
We got sump pump failure.
I got one too.
I have one
It's
too.
wet
Smoke.
down
Guys,
here.
I've got some good news and bad news. The good news is that my phone is now fully charged. The bad news is that I unplugged the sump pump to charge it.
No, Ian.
Go get it plugged in.
I'll get it
Go
okay,
plugged in.
all right.
This is a basement.
I've got one shop vac coming.
Oh,
Problems.
Izzy.
Problems.
Damn, these are new shoes too.
Call 911.
You want to do a little? Gotcha. Tony, guess what? I won again for the 5th time. Hey, we better get the show started, guys.
Let's do it. Hey, welcome to Between the Studs. My name is Lonnie Norris, and this is part of the Granite Ridge Builders team, including our president, Tony Reinke. We're glad you've joined us today. Between the Studs is about new home construction in our area. Processes, trends, features, energy-efficient components, all kinds of things that make up today's new construction. We're glad you joined us, and today we do have an announcement to make. We're going to take the show to a new lower level.
Oh, I get it. Actually, today's show is going to be about basements. After we got this basement cleaned up and all the water dried, thanks to Izzy, we're going to discuss a little bit about names. What are some names that you guys have now heard basements called?
First thing I think of is the kids' retreat for the children, or for men, the man cave.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
I've seen a multi-purpose quite a bit with maybe a little workshop, a wet bar, a game room, a fireplace, a real activity center.
I see storm shelters, or at my house, it's a big hockey rink.
Isn't that the truth?
Oh, yeah.
You know, back when I was growing up, we had the fruit cellar with Grandma. She would always can and preserve all fall long, and then we put it all down in the fruit cellar. And now we can go down there and grab, you know, like the peach that I have or the strawberry that you have.
And historically, did you guys know, they used to be also called root cellars. Do you know what that meant?
No.
Actually, what they did was they would store all their vegetables, potatoes, apples. They would put it in what they called the root cellar. I
remember that.
Now, here's one better. Lonnie and I have a father-in-law that grew up over off of St. Joe Road. Now, what he did, he went to the St. Joe River. They would cut a huge block of ice, drag it to their house, put it in the cellar, and then they would put straw or hay around it. Guess what? They would have refrigeration all year round when nobody had refrigeration.
Brilliant.
And Fort Wayne was where the refrigerator was invented.
Yeah, good point. Well, I thought we'd also do this. What are you guys seeing some other rooms down in the basements after finishing them? What are we doing today on some finished areas?
I had one family that I worked with who actually designed it to be a reptile sanctuary.
Oh,
Wow.
I had one where they did a complete music studio down there, and we're seeing a lot of theater rooms down there now, which Elizabeth and I are going to talk about a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, I think about like the half-court basketball court that we put in one. I thought that was really fun.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
And I always like building ones where they actually take advantage of the space underneath the front porch, and Tony and I are going to talk about that a little bit later.
yeah.
Very good.
How about a mother-in-law suite?
Don't the stairs make it hard for the in-laws to get up and down?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
That is a good idea.
Horrible.
Let's do this. Let's go ahead and break off into groups, and let's talk a little bit about some of the designs. You guys are going to talk about theater room. Lonnie, you and Tony, why don't you go talk about windows, like daylight windows, walkout basements, see if you can figure out a way to do that.
You know, Lonnie, 87 Foxwood, Forest of Foxwood, the big parade home that we did last year, that's got great windows out there
near
on
the
that.
lake. Near the
at-
lake.
Near the lake. Let's,
Oh yeah, let's go.
Well, hurry up and get
We
out
need
of
to
there.
go over there for
Get
sure.
out there. We're going to have
Great
you guys in the
windows.
next segment.
Great windows.
I think I'm going to practice my pull.
Okay.
Let's finish.
Yeah, hit that up, JR.
Hey, Lonnie,
Yes.
You know,
Yes,
the
Tony.
weather not be the best out here, but I've always been told that a bad day fishing is better than a good day working.
I want to experience that, Tony. Let's try it.
All right,
Let's
tell
try
you
it.
what, why don't we call the office, tell the guys there that we need to do a little extra studying for our segment
Yeah,
today.
tell them we're kind of tied up. Our heads are spinning. All kinds of ideas. Okay.
Perfect. All right, watch out, I'm casting.
Hey, way to plug that sump pump back in, is.
Well, if my cell phone isn't charged, I'm not at my best. So I had to make sure my cell phone was charged.
Very good. Well, everybody knows we were just joking on that one. What we're going to talk about down here, a little bit about how people finish out the basement.
Yeah, how people design and finish the basement. And one of the things that we've talked about a lot with this home is our second set of steps, which is a great example of one of those things that a lot of people might not even think about ahead of time. And we really encourage you to think, not wait till the last minute, but really plan out what you plan to do inside that basement.
And a lot of times the basement part is only thought out in the 11th hour. So maybe we'll talk about a few ideas, give people some food for thought about what they may or may not want to do with that basement. But that second set of stairs, that's brilliant, coming in from the garage down here.
Yeah.
I like that.
We talked before too about ceiling height, and even you were talking a little bit about ceiling joists. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I still don't quite get that.
The first topic I always talk about when doing someone's basement is, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
If we're just packing kids down there and letting them be Elizabeths on a hockey rink, 8-foot ceiling's good enough down there. But if you're going to be adults and you're going to entertain down there and you're going to have some decent windows down there, let's take that to a 9-foot deep basement. And then the floor joists that I alluded to. Some builders will use a 10-inch tall I-beam floor joist.
Okay.
We choose not to use that for a couple of reasons. Number one, we think that 10-inch bounces too much. Number two, you can't span as far a length as you can with the 12-inch I-beam joist that we use. So now that we're able to span further distances, maybe we can eliminate headers, posts, and just kind of open up that whole game room, living room area.
Yeah, and the less post, the more people tend to like that real open concept in that basement as well.
Exactly, and nothing worse than shooting pool around a post too. You know?
I like thinking too, in the future, a lot of people want to do how many baths, or if it's a half bath or a full bath, wet bar,
True.
different options like
True.
that.
Or none of it. But
Yeah.
it's all something we should be talking about and considering when we design that basement layout for them.
Thinking it through ahead of time.
Utility room's another one, is.
Absolutely, a utility room. My utility room at my old place was really, really cramped, and it was just kind of an afterthought. They threw everything down there, and there wasn't much space to do anything.
True. Let's expand a little bit on that word utility room that is just used. Sometimes people think that's where the washer and dryer goes. In our world, utility room means that's where your furnace, water heater, maybe your water softener, your sump pump is down there, maybe your grinder pit if you decided to plumb for future baths or wet bars or whatnot down there. And location of that utility room is an issue. Sometimes people don't think about that. When we're assisting them, we like to have that utility room relatively centrally located in that basement.
Yeah.
So all these heat runs are approximately the same run versus positioning on one side of the house and this side being warmer in winter and this side of the house being colder in winter.
And we definitely want to think about that when we're thinking about putting a bedroom down there as well. So if we're going to put a bedroom down there, we talk about that you need to have an egress window. And I love how you explain what the purpose of that egress window was. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Didn't know how important it was.
Yeah, I think egress window is amazingly important even if you don't have a bedroom down there. I think it's always nice to have one just as a second fire escape out of there. But let's define egress window. Egress window is a window large enough that if there was an emergency, you or your family can escape out of it, but also large enough that a fire rescue person can get in to rescue you with all their gear on. Traditionally, it's 42 inches off the floor, blah, 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 but picture it as just a normal window upstairs positioned on your basement wall downstairs.
And once you know why, it makes so much more sense, and I don't know why you wouldn't do one.
Exactly. For that second fire escape, I think it's a brilliant idea.
And we do a lot of finished basements with Granite Ridge, but we also do a lot of unfinished.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't quite understand the difference between unfinished and finished basements.
Right. Well, let's talk about taking it from the basic to the extreme and maybe a couple of stopping points in between there. Let's talk about the basic that we do by code. Picture these concrete walls of your basement being studded, wired, insulated, moisture barriered. We get out of there. Now it's good for somebody someday to put a little drywall up, finish it off, whatever their dreams are, or just leave it as a hockey rink.
Yeah, and I like one of the things that we do as well, that we don't just wire it per code. I guess in the code for basement, if we're wiring, it's only one outlet per large cavity, but we do it just like we do for the upstairs finished area. So you've got
Exactly.
plenty of outlets there to take care of whatever you might do in the future.
Exactly. So when it's finished off, you're plugging in just like you were plugging in upstairs in your living room. Yep. Another fun stopping point on that. Once again, we don't have to take it all the way to finished. One fun stopping point is we could drywall that basement. We could tape it, mud it, sand it, Spanish lace that ceiling, take that dirt with us when we go out. So now when the homeowner moves in there, they can put a little sweat equity in their own home. A little paint, a little trim, carpet it someday, etc. Have a nice finished area. Yep.
And then we also have talked about that the best or the cheapest square footage is actually in the basement as well.
Absolutely. That hole's already there. It's already studded. If you wanted to finish it out, it will be the least expensive square foot of that home. It's a great investment.
You and I have talked before too about one of the reasons that people decide where to put their door on their stairway, if any at all,
If any at all. Exactly.
has to do with this finishing process.
Finishing it or unfinishing it. So let's talk about that. If that was an unfinished basement, many times I recommend that we put the door at the top of the stairs because those stairs are unfinished too. We stop that dirt from traveling up. Sometimes if it's just a drywalled basement or even finished, they may choose to put the door at the bottom of the stairs to keep the noise from coming up, or may choose just to not use that door at all. So door location is a topic that needs to be talked about.
Well, I think if people have listened in today and really have started to think about what they want to do with the basement, there's a lot of design ideas that are available there, a lot of things to take your time to think through. Don't wait till the last minute as you're planning your house, but try to think of how you're going to use your spaces and make sure you plan to use them wisely.
Just share with us your thoughts. What are you thinking about doing down there? We're helping that design, location, room size, etc. We'll help you out. Great. Thanks, Iz.
Thanks
Good
a lot,
job.
Phil.
Hey, I like the shirt, man.
Hey, that's very nice.
Look at that. Yeah. Makes our eyes pop, doesn't it? Thanks, Iz.
Yeah, it's our turn.
Tell them we'll catch them later.
You know what? Sorry, Darren, we're gonna have to pass on that right now. We're still doing our research.
Busy.
All right, thank you.
We got another 20 minutes.
Elizabeth, I don't think Lonnie and Tony are quite ready yet,
Okay,
so
that figures.
yeah, knowing those two. Let's just go ahead and do our segment right now.
Sure.
I think today you're going to talk to us about purposing a basement and how we can use that space.
Exactly. The basement or the lower level is a blank slate. So most basements range anywhere from a partial that might be 700 square feet on up to 2,000 or 2,500. So it's a large space to think about what you want to do down there.
So I've got one right now that's unfinished, and I know my wife and I are really looking for some ideas. Can you kind of give us some general things that we might be able to do with that space?
Sure. Well, look at your lifestyle. I know that you both like to entertain. So we're here in our theater room, which really has evolved over the years. We used to think of a theater room with the stadium seating, but that's kind of gone away because people just aren't using those.
Yeah, this one looks completely different. Can you tell me a little bit about what we did here in this Next Step theater room?
Well, this one, we did 1,500 fiber optic lights in the ceiling. So it's really unique and a big talking point. Also, it's really open to the rest of the lower level. So we have a wine grotto, which is very popular, that's open to this room. So you could stand out there and talk while there's something going on in here, and you're still all a part of the conversation. Also, we've put some barn doors on, so it's open to the rest of the lower level. So if you've got your friends here and there's kids, you're all together, but you're still a little bit separated. You have the separation.
Yeah, I can see my wife loving that as a nice space down in our basement too. We're pretty active in our family. We like to run, we like to walk, and unfortunately we got some pretty bad winters in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Are people still incorporating maybe gyms or workout rooms in their basements?
We're doing a lot of gyms. We're actually seeing them get a little bit larger because people are into health and fitness a little bit more than they used to. Speaking of health and fitness, I know that Jenny likes to cook and you like to eat.
Which is why I think I need the gym more than ever right now.
Yes. So a second kitchen or a big bar in the lower level is popular. So if you're having a Super Bowl party, you can have everything down here so you're not going up and down. So that's a good idea.
Wonderful.
Another thing is, we've left this pretty open so it can be very flexible. So as time goes on, your needs and your wants are going to change. So right now I know you like to play pool, so the billiards is important, playing cards, but over time you may change and want something else in that space. Another consideration is children. So Most of us don't like to look at all their toys in the mess, so you may want a separate room dedicated for their toys. But what you could do is have it set up in the future to be a bedroom. So even if you're never going to use it or need it as a bedroom, it's good for your resale just to have that one additional space.
And Joe and Izzy talked in an earlier segment about egress windows. We need to make sure we incorporate that into that space, I assume.
That's correct. So even if it's not going to be a bedroom, you might want to have one somewhere in your basement in case you had an emergency where you could get out. Which brings up another point, is our lower levels feel a lot different because of the windows that we're doing in them, which we've talked about different sizes. You really feel like you're on the main level.
Gotcha. And I think Tony and Lonnie are going to talk about those windows here coming up. Let's see if they're ready for us yet.
Hey, Lonnie, I think the phone's ringing again. What the? Yeah, JR, no, can't really talk right now. We're working on some real good lines.
Yeah, tell them we're working real hard.
We're working real hard right now. Okay, 20 more minutes. Thanks. Bye.
Of course not. Let's just watch another episode of Between
Yeah,
the
I give
Studs.
up.
Get your hat, Tony.
How'd you catch my
I don't know.
It's the only thing you caught all day.
It was in the wrong place.
It was on my head. Hey, Lonnie, we got to figure out a way to worm out of this.
We do. You know, they're thinking about lower levels. We're thinking about lowering our bobbers.
Better fish. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll do ours. All right. They're still not ready, so we have to do our segment.
Okay, well, we're talking about lower levels, so why are we sitting on the front porch?
You know, that's a good thing. What we need to do is probably go back to the basics. So, Luke, tell me this. What does it take from a piece of ground to get a basement dug and put in?
Well, yeah, one of the first things we look at is water management with any basement is a big issue. So we want to make sure that we get the elevation set just right for the start of the house. Then we can dig the basement. And when we dig the basement, we actually have to dig 3 foot further out on every perimeter wall. We call that the overcut. And it costs about $1,500 to $2,000 just to dig the basement.
Okay, and then obviously we put the walls up. Now, how do you keep the water from going into a basement with a concrete wall? Give our audience a little explanation on how we do that.
Yeah, good question. So when we dig the basement wall, obviously we're disturbing the ground. So it's no longer virgin soil. So any rain that comes off the roof or any rain that hits that 3 foot overcut is going to have the tendency to run right down to the footer. So what we do is we put a 4-inch perimeter tile around the perimeter of the basement. Then on top of that, we put 3 foot of stone, which kind of acts as like a filter bed so that dirt doesn't clog that 4-inch tile up.
Okay, so what you're saying is basically that water would then almost in the stone be sucked down into the perimeter tile, taking it away so your house won't float and or potentially move as much.
Correct. And it hits that 4-inch tile, then it goes to the sump pump, and then we pump it out away from the house.
Okay, good explanation. Now obviously we're sitting here on the front porch, and you've done some things in the last several years that I think is just unique and very special. You've actually taken some of our really large porches, like we're on one now, and tell me what you did underneath this basement in order to make it special.
Yeah, one of the hottest trends that we're doing right now is whenever we do a front porch.
Okay.
So like this front porch I mentioned, we have the 3 foot overcut.
Yeah.
Well, to keep that porch from moving, I have to fill that all the way up with stone. So I have about 9 foot of stone underneath this porch right here.
And that could cost upwards of $1,000 or $1,500.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, on a porch like this where we got a roof over the top, we have a footer around the edge. And
Okay.
that footer goes 36 inches. So what we've been doing, some people are taking advantage of this, is that footer we actually extend another 5 foot and it becomes a wall. Then we can get rid of the stone and the dirt in this area, and then we can access it through the basement, and this becomes an extension of the house.
So you're actually talking about putting a room underneath the porch, utilizing it for something.
Yeah.
So what have you been utilizing it for?
Well, it varies greatly. We did one house where somebody actually made it their wine cellar.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
We did
Found that.
another house where they actually made it their gun safe. He put a jib door on it, just like the one we have here in the Next Step house.
Sure, hidden door.
Yep, he put his guns in there and nobody ever knew they were there. Another idea that you can do is for a couple $1,000s more, you can actually buy what looks exactly like a bank safe door. And then
Oh.
we actually pour it in with the concrete, making it a very, very secure room.
So you could potentially have a 5 or 6 foot wide room. going maybe 30 or 40 feet in some cases, and that could be storing your valuables,
Yeah.
a different room that nobody knows about, or even a room that is an extension of your basement.
Or Elizabeth mentioned earlier, a storm shelter. You could use it for that as well.
Awesome. So these are kind of some fun ideas. You can always call Granite Ridge anytime you'd like to, and we can help you design some of these ideas. Now, before we go, I'm going to go over here and let's talk a little bit about height of our houses, and especially when you have a basement. So why do we have a lip here?
Yeah, so whenever we do a basement, and generally speaking, if you drive by the street, you see this step on a house, you know that there's probably a basement in that house.
Well, that's good advice for our people. So if you're driving down and you see a lip, chances are there is a basement in that particular home.
Correct. Now, Tony, earlier I heard you talking about having a basement without a basement and something to do with Florida.
Yeah, you know what's funny is we built homes out in Florida and we also built in Texas. And some people down in Florida will call it a Florida basement. I bet you don't know what they do with that.
I have no idea.
Technically, they normally can't put a basement in, so they would like storage ability and things like that. So it's kind of like what we would call our mudroom, laundry room, or storage area. So that's really what they mean by Florida basement.
Okay. Now you mentioned Texas too. How do they do their basements there?
It's interesting. They actually have what they call Texas basements. Their soil down in Texas shifts a lot, so they really don't put many basements in because it can crack the slabs. So what they do when they call it a Texas basement, they'll normally put their theater room or maybe a rec room up above a house on a ranch level.
Okay, well, we've done that in a few of our villas.
Actually, we're doing a lot of villas now, and then what they're doing is putting their theater room or maybe some kind of extra room up above, and it's not really that expensive.
Well, I don't know if I understand the whole basement without a basement, but I believe
But just
you.
trust me, it's a basement without a basement.
Okay.
You know, Lonnie, we really do need to think about doing this segment.
Okay, but by the way, what's a guy with a blue hat mean?
Guy with the blue hat, do you have your fishing license?
No, I don't have a license.
That means we have to go do the segment now.
Okay. Whew. Well, Tony, since we're here in the backyard, let's make the best of a bad day fishing and talk about these windows in the lower levels. And this is a great place to do it.
This is a wonderful place to do it. This home was actually in the Parade of Homes in the last year and won best lower level out of all the different homes that were here.
Lot 87 Foxwood. You're right,
Forest
Tony.
of Foxwood, it is gorgeous, and we did something a little unique here for these windows. We actually did a natural wing wall.
We did, and here's a great example of it here where we use stone and landscape pieces and rock and sod and so on to give ourselves a natural wing wall versus just a sterile concrete wall.
Much more inviting when you walk down.
Much more
when
inviting.
you walk down those stairs. Now, also,
They're pretty.
these are not your stereotypical
They're not.
windows at all for a basement.
This particular lot has pretty severe slope, but it wasn't quite enough to do a walkout. We needed maybe 1.5, 2 feet more, but we were able to get in these large 4-foot windows in the lower level.
Lets in lots of light that way.
We call these daylight windows. They come in 2-foot, 3-foot, 4-foot sizes, maybe 5-foot possibly, but they let in a lot of light. You're down in the lower level, you feel like you're inside of just on the first level of a home.
So really, when we're talking about windows in a basement, options are truly endless.
They really are. We're starting, with maybe a small 1 by 2 foot that a lot of times we can put above the grade, and they let in some light and give you some ventilation. $400 or $500, you can put a window like that in, and then we move to daylight windows. This is an example of the daylight.
Now there is another example of a window that's more of an awning style that pops up.
Right.
That's 1 foot by 5 foot. So if you don't finish your basement right away and you don't want to move all your drywall through the house,
Right.
you can just pop up that window, put the drywall straight through there to your buddies, and you don't have any of that drywall dust going through your main level that you already finished out.
You're exactly right. And those range anywhere from $600 or $700, maybe $800 to put a nice window in. Again, to give you some light and also some ventilation and meet that drywall need, the finished basement need in the future.
Now the one thing those won't do though, Joe talked about in an earlier segment about the egress windows, the ones for the fire safety.
Right, and a lot of people say, well, that's a big window, but it's not within 42 inches of the floor. Remember, we got to be within 42 inches of the floor to be technically an egress window, and you need egress windows anytime you put a bedroom on that lower level.
Now, if you're doing an egress window, a lot of people, when I talk to them about the windows, they hear, $1,200, $1,400 for an egress window, and they really don't understand everything that goes into that egress window.
Yes, Tony, you're right. Oftentimes, with respect to an egress window or even a daylight window, part of your grade is literally under the ground. So we have to put a window well in and a drain. So part of the cost.
drain?
A drain, yes, because as water comes into that window well, we got to get rid of that water. So we're going to take it down to the footer tile. It goes to the sump pump, and then it's pumped away. Very important that those drains be put in on those windows.
Now, can you have to worry about leaves and things like that getting into that as well? I mean, we're in spring right now. Is this a good time to start actually going down and making sure that those aren't clogged?
That's a good maintenance tip, because leaves and, of course, snow and debris will get in those drains, and then we could have a backup. You don't want that in your lower level, because we're finishing those in incredible ways these days.
You know, windows are such a major part of actually finishing out your lower level to make it feel like a true family room or billiard room or anything along those lines. How do we know what's the right window for our house?
A couple questions come up. First of all, what is the topography or the slope of the land? That really dictates what you can do and you can't do with respect to the type of window and whether you need a window well or not. If you say, I don't want window wells, and your lot is flat, you're probably going to be confined to just a smaller window, unless we bring the house way up out of the ground, and that may or may not work, and it could be costly. But topography, we start with topography. And then also, do you want a deck? Well, the minute you start talking about daylight windows or egress windows, if you don't have a window well, you're certainly going to end up with a deck.
So really,
90% of the time.
So really what we're saying is, if you're looking at building and you have a piece of property that you've always wanted to maybe build your dream home on,
Right.
really they need to call Granite Ridge Builders, and we'll have one of our supervisors go out there and they can walk
Yes.
that lot and give them a good idea of what they need to do.
Early in the game, we want to put our eyes on that lot. We may even want to shoot it with our equipment to make sure we know what the topography is if it's questionable, so that we know what our options are and we can tell the customer this is what we can do and this is what we can't as it relates to windows on the lower level.
And they can actually tell them where almost they could put those windows at within the basement to help them with what JR and Elizabeth were talking about, planning those spaces down in their lower level to get it all worked out right. And they can do that really just by calling the number,
Right.
and saying, hey, I may be building in a month, I may be building in 5 years, but would you guys mind coming out and walking the property
Right.
and seeing what you think is going on?
That's right. We build a lot of homes in the country on our lots and other people's lots. Topography and putting our eyes on a lot is so critical. So give us a call. We'd like to look at your lot or one of ours and figure out what we can and can't do.
One more thing I need to add to that. That's something that we don't charge for, do we?
That's right. This is free of no charge. We're going to do it because it's important to us as it is to the client.
You know what? Let's go back to fishing. The guy with the blue hat's gone.
He's gone.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Your dad invented this game.
And Joe the Stick to Gregory crumbles under the pressure. He hasn't had that much pressure since his third year of senior high. J.R. Vord is now up, the incumbent, the challenger. His dad invented the game. You think he would give him an edge here tonight, but we'll see how it goes. Well, his dad is finally proud. He has redeemed himself.
Hey, guys. What a great show we had today. It was fun.
I know, I'm hooked.
And also, what a great cast.
Lonnie.
So anyway, hey, thanks for joining us today. We hope that this has been informative. You've learned something about lower levels, basements, mother-in-law suites, no matter whatever you want to call them.
Exactly right. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do so well, please give us a call, visit our website, or even better yet, just come on in the front door. We'd like to meet you. Thank you. That was a great cast.
All right, someone finish up this mess. This is horrible.
This is a mess. Man, still you.